Hello.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me as well?
Yeah, thank you. It's perfect.
Okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You just got off work?
Yep.
Cool. Where do you work?
Oh, in a nearby restaurant here. So I come back at 10 and then it's my debates are always on like either early morning or late night because I yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
uh-huh.
I've never done this before. Um, Sometimes I try to start debates in person and they usually just,
Uh-huh.
it's too taboo of a subject. They usually just be quiet. So this is
Uh-huh.
pretty exciting.
Is it your first debate here?
Yeah, it's my
Yay!
first real debate.
Wow.
Like, yeah, I mean, I want to clarify your position as well. Um, Are you against the use of skin whitening creams in
Yes.
Africa?
Yes.
Because are you against it because of the carcinogens in the product, or are you against the whole mentality and
Um,
mindset before that
mhm.
that
I,
exists?
I'm more against the mindset. I think the health idea was, I mean, that was just a small portion of it that came to my mind, but like later. So my idea is more on the mentality that people have regarding the color.
I understand. And another question I had: how come Africa? It seems like India is the most they use it the most there.
hmm Yes, they do use. I checked the surveys and all. So it shows India is the one that has, I think, most production as well. But the thing is that if in case and if you see the majority of people, like majority of black people, they are in Africa, because like in India you see if there are like more brown people, or maybe like it's not a majority, but I know the mentality is even worse in that case, but still, like in Africa, it's the majority of that population is existing. So that's why I actually wanted to talk about Africa, because in India you can see a lot of like it's not just black people, like it's just maybe a less percentage of black people, but in Africa, well, there is a majority standing, and then like you are just doing that. That's something I don't advocate for. And I don't advocate for that in India as well, but just talking about Africa in general, like in this debate.
Yeah, so I think we're on the same page as far as we're both against it. I
Mhm.
think what we disagree on is the solution. I don't think it's a good idea to ban it because banning it's not really going to get rid of the underlying need for the product in the first place. When you have culture, history, like
Mhm.
society,
Mhm.
everything validating your low sense of self-worth, people are going to
Mhm.
get it anyway. They're going to smuggle it from overseas. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not going to go away. It also seems like it's not just that, it also seems like it's an education problem. Um,
Mhm.
I'm quoting a dermatologist, I forgot his name, but he says that 90% of the people aren't even aware of like the dangerous effects of these products. So, I
Mhm.
mean, education, history, I
Mhm.
mean, they people don't like darker skin is like frowned upon and
Mhm.
you have
Mhm.
history, you have slavery. I mean, Nigeria, 77% of people in Nigeria use it, so women at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, so if in case you believe that education is actually the way to do it, or education is the solution to it, so don't you think people have actually tried education, or maybe tried educating people on this, and then why do you think there is still no solution on it?
well, I don't think they have been properly educated. I mean, 90% of, I mean, I can find that study for you if you'd like. If 90% of the people aren't aware of like the hydroquinone and there's other toxic substances in the product, I don't think I think education has failed them, and I think they need a reform. They also need a reform in society, the media. I mean, you have celebrities that are using this product, Versakita, etc., and they're going to look at someone to model their beauty after, and so it's also society's fault as well, the culture.
Mhm. So yes, that's what like I'm saying that it's so deep rooted in the culture. It's I mean so like education has not been able to take it off. So we need a concrete action for this. If you see, educational campaigns can and do work on many of the issues, but they can only do so much in terms of making genuine progress. But you can see that there is no genuine progress in this one. So if you want to change attitudes, generally subconscious, more concrete actions needed. That's why legislation affects everyone, while an educational campaign will only reach to a comparatively small number of people. Legislation actually affects everyone. That is why more concrete action like banning is actually required in this case. That is what I advocate.
And I'm saying if we ban it, it's not going to get rid of the need for it. I mean, for an example, let's take smoking in the United States. Smoking in the 60s was like 40 to 45%. We didn't ban smoking. What we did is we had a reform in education. We stopped advertising cigarette smoking, and now in 2017, it's lower than 15%. It's the lowest it's ever been. So I think something like that would really enhance Africa, especially Nigeria. Countries are already in Africa are banning it. South Africa, Ghana has banned it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they ban products with more than 2% of hydroquinone.
Mm-hmm.
Hydroquinone. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it's also the West too. I mean, you have like people, you have Beyonce and other people using skin whitener, and these are role models because they look similar to them. I'm not trying to sound
Mm-hmm.
racist or anything, but people try
Mm-hmm.
and model others who they think look like them. It's just a fact.
Yeah, so that's okay. So people do that because you are actually, I mean, the skin whitening products, they're acting as a standard that one person has to have in case the person wants to look beautiful or wants to be appreciated. If in case you see in the advertisements of this kind of like, skin whitening products, what they show is that if an like I could actually explain you an advertisement. What they do is that there's a black guy, and then like when he goes out to girls, no one is looking at him, like people are like just not caring him. But after actually he uses this fair and handsome or something, and then he comes back, then everyone is like sticking to him. So that's what advertisements are showing. So what idea they're giving to the audience is that um, being whiter is more acceptable, being whiter is the standard. So now this we do need to break this a standard, because if in case like you see like media, I mean media actually plays a big role in promoting this kind of ideas. So I think there is a need of breaking down this standard to actually let people know that whatever their skin color is, that is like that is okay, that is fine, that is nice. But it's not done by the media. It's just so opposite. It shows people that you are not loved if in case you are black, and then if in case like you're loved if in case you're white. Girls are going to stick to you. You're getting a good boy for marries and all. So it's just such a big issue.
Well, yeah, and I agree. And then to go back to the whole media, it works. The U.S. has done it. They did it with cigarettes. I'm sure there's other products. They used to have women like smoking cigarettes in like
Mhm.
every single commercial, and now it's like different. And that's part of the reason there's been a decrease. I think we can do something similar in Africa. I mean, they have history to validate that, though. If you look at slavery, they'd have the brown bag test. They said they'd
Mhm.
hold up a brown bag. If you were darker than that, you were treated more unfairly. So you have all that going on. Which is why people are associating a negative emotion with darker skin. It's actually kind of silly, but I think they should promote more self love, and I think it could work. I don't think banning it could. Are you from the U.S., by the way?
No, 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 I'm from
Okay.
Nepal.
Okay. Okay, Nepal. I keep bringing up the U.S. because I'm here. So they, for example, marijuana is illegal in my state. Yeah, every single person, every other person seems to have some for some reason. If it's banned and yet people still have it, I think something similar will still happen in Africa
Hmm.
if we ban it. And it's been happening. There's counts of people smuggling it across from overseas. So I think cultural reform of the media, and more education. I mean, all these countries, they probably don't have enough funding for education because the IMF and everything. They're probably,
Hmm.
I think they're a terrorist organization. We can debate
Hmm.
that again later if you want.
Uh-huh.
They have all this debt from predatory lending. They don't have. I don't think they have the funding for like enough public education. So that's another big problem.
Hmm. Okay, so I think the solution you are giving, the educational reform, which, because it's high time, like it has been a long time, people have realized that there should be no racial segregation and all. So it's not that people have not been working on it. Like it has been years and years, people have been working on it, but still, the reason it has not been possible is because it's no concrete action. Like it's not reaching out to people as much as it could, because campaigns are always relatively like into smaller groups or something. But if in case there's a legislation, then that's something that as a government will be held responsible to imply on the people itself. So it's more of a concrete action that will actually help this thing to go. Like, I'm not saying it'll be a sudden, like, some change that tomorrow morning I'll just believe, like, everyone will stop using it. That's not what I'm proposing. So what I mean is that there will be some kind of change, because legislation always has more of an impact on people, and then there will be some kind of change. But educational reforms, they have already not been efficient enough. So that's why we are actually coming to this thing about banning. If in case educational reforms had worked, we'd have never come to the idea of banning. But before that, I would like to just give you an example of what happened to my country just maybe a few months ago. So I'm from Nepal, and even in my country, the thing about brown collar or black collar exists. I like, having a brown complexion, I myself have faced a lot of things growing up, and then even after I was like, and still today, I would say I'm not denying, but it's just that now I have this protection self, which I do not care, like, even when people actually say it. So the thing is that there was I mean, every country has Miss Nepal, or like maybe like, their Miss title, like, maybe Miss United States or something like that. So we had Miss Nepal back maybe a few months ago. And then what happened was that a girl with a brown complexion actually won the competition. So she became Miss Nepal, and she now is about to represent the country in Miss World, like in Miss World. So what happened, like after she was crowned Miss Nepal, was that over internet, over every, like, social media, like what people were talking about was that what they, like, actually talked about was that, like, is this girl actually from, like, from our country itself? Like, she's brown. I mean, so I mean, she cannot be. I mean, we cannot accept this girl is a Miss Nepal. That's what people talked about. That was exactly what I saw people talking about. She's not deserving. Like, and later even they questioned that if this girl was actually not a Nepali, well, she is a Nepali. So it just, so the amount of emotion people carry for this thing is so big that any educational reform does not hold the capacity to do it. So if in case, like, it was possible, like, so in Nepal what happens is that in terms of periods, like menstruation, you don't go to kitchen and all, not in Nepal, just in India as well. So even if a girl actually goes to her parents, like, or grandparents, and then tell them that, hey, like, grandfather, like, there was a different case before, there was no health, but like health ideas, so that's why, like, you could be considered impure, and then you could be like not uh, allowed to get into the kitchen. But then now it's different. Now we are healthier, we have everything, facilities and all. Those grandparents are never going to agree, because they have their own, like, idea deep rooted inside them, so they are never going to agree to it. We just have to let it pass. If in case you see, like, in ideas like this, if in case you ask people, like, how do you change it, they will tell you that you just have to let it pass. So my grandfather was this. I have been on less, like, less strict on this. Maybe my son will be less strict on this. So that's what they suggest, because educational reform actually holds very less power to change the deep rooted mindset. Like, it's difficult. So that's why I propose a legislation that will be more effective on doing this.
I gotcha, and that's just, oh, sorry, that's one of the examples, I guess, where, and I think that's wonderful, where there's always going to be an outlier that defies cultural norms. But I don't think it's, if we wait too long for that to happen, then more damage is going to continue. I still, like, what happens when we ban it? Like, I mean, America, we legalized tanning booths in the West, at least. It almost seems more socially acceptable to be darker color. I mean, here in the West, like, if you're black, people associate that with like strength and athleticism. It just shows like the difference between the West and how Africa views black people. And I maybe. Do you think an educational reform is too out of grasp? I mean, is it too far fetched?
I mean, like, what I would say is that it could, I mean, it could, even if it can, like, it will take a longer time. As I told you, like, what people will answer back to you is that, like, let it pass on, let it pass on. That's what people answer because, like, I mean, it's difficult to challenge people ideas. Like my grandfather, like, he has come from a different generation. He had his own sets of ideas and own set of, like, evidences to believe what he believes. So I no longer exist in that space. So it's very difficult for, I mean, it's near to impossible, like, for me to actually convince my grandparents for
Oh yeah.
actually, so it's just, yeah. So educational reform, I mean, it will take a longer time, and I think legislation is a much stricter way, and then, like, it will definitely do bring some positive changes.
I mean, do you think, like, is it like, I mean, I think people have the right to brighten their skin, lighten their skin, or whatever. I don't think banning it. I mean, you can regulate it, get rid of the carcinogens in the products, but I don't think banning it, like, I think you really have to dig deeper. You have to go through the roots. You're right, though. I mean, old people, they're kind of stuck in their ways. It's been ingrained in them for like 60 to 70 years, so you can't really change them. That's my experience. That's why
Mhm.
in my country, there's still old people. They grew up during like the Jim Crow laws, and so they're still very racist versus African Americans. They still
Mhm.
hold these
Mhm.
ideas.
Mhm.
It's going to take generations of generations. So I see what you're saying. We should pass legislation. I just think I don't think that. I honestly don't think it would work just putting a full out ban. I mean, people are going to get it anyway. What do you do to address that?
Mhm. How are they going to get it anyway?
Well, it's been happening in Ghana, South Africa. People are still getting it. It becomes
Are
smuggled
people okay? Uh-huh.
because Ghana, they in the 1980s they passed legislation to ban any skin whitener that contains hydroquinone in it, and but people are still using it, and I don't think it's gonna stop. You got to do something different. I don't know if the West needs to get involved. It seems like every time they do, something bad happens. But
Okay, so in terms of not being so efficient as well, like there has been like certain level of result contributed like positively, if like even if in case, like, so this is definitely, I mean, the maybe the black market, or maybe like people are getting it.
right,
This is the kind of idea that comes in every debate about like, banning something.
right,
But yeah, I think, so that even though that exists, like, but we cannot, what you are saying is that, like, banning is not a solution, though, like, it might have it has a bad impact on people. Like, banning is not a good solution, but still, what my side is actually suggesting is that, um it is a better solution, because in at least, like, it will increase the positivity, or maybe it will actually establish positive environment, maybe to some extent. It will do it to some extent. That is what I'm suggesting. So, like, uh talking about freedom, actually, I think, like, if let me just give you an example. If in case, like, whiter skin is which is done, whiter skin is actually promoted, it's actually appreciated and all. So a black girl would actually not feel confident enough to go to a group of white women and then talk about it. So now what will she, like, she will be restricting herself, like, she will be confining her freedom, she'll be confining her, like, her choices, because there is a larger truth that is existing in the society, that whiter women are the best, or maybe whiter women, like, are the superior. So now what happens to every individual is that the individual is actually going back maybe to using creams and all, which is actually confining the freedom of living in their own self. And and that this is, and, like, because it is always a negative thing that has impacted this use. It's not a positive thing that has actually impacted of the use of it. It's because, like, white are given more privilege. Like, if you see, like, even in countries like, countries like USA as well. If you see, previously blacks were not actually given the right to vote and all, so there's always been a higher level of privilege associated with whiter women, whiter males, and then that's why like people are doing it because they want to be a part of those privileges. Black people are actually considered dangerous in a lot of countries, if you see in America as well. So what, like, why people want to be white is because they want to gain more privileges. And why is that bad now? Because it is coming from a negative, like, a negative way to them. It's not a positive, it's not a positive result, positive action they are taking. It comes all down to the negative thing that has been affecting them, that has been affecting the confidence, the freedom of living as well. And that's why it happens. And mhm,
No, I agree 100%. I mean, in my country, African Americans, they have the highest incarceration rates, are most likely to live in poverty. It has nothing to do with biological
mhm,
race. It's more to do with uh, we had the Jim Crow laws. There's
mhm,
socioeconomic factors that are disenfranchising them and causing them to resort to crimes due to like lack of
mhm,
education, lack of proper
mhm,
infrastructure. And just to clarify your point, you're saying that the people in Africa, that it, the only way to get, if you pass legislation just banning it completely, you think that's the only way that they can finally recognize that this is something that's actually bad for their skin, that's something that's bad for culture, what they're thinking is wrong. You think that's the only way to do it?
okay, so what is as I'm saying, like, ban on whitening products, like, is I said, like, is not a solution to every evil social, like, ill. And as I said, like, the social ill is very difficult to, like, be pushed away from an educational reform as well. But even the banning is not actually completely efficient in doing it. But what is being suggested is that these products are harmful, and the culture they create is even more harmful. So the proposition, or maybe like I'm concerned about the normalization. Like, I'm not actually saying that this would completely be like, doing completely be life changing, or maybe the next day everyone's like, hey, like, no products, no use of such products and all. But it's just that I believe that it will in a way normalize the situation. Because, like, what happens in like such products is that if you see there's like, maybe Fair and Lovely, or like, kind of these products, what happens is that you saw a darker face first, and then now it's fairer, 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 and then now you go to a whiter face that's brighter, and then that's how they sew it. So that's how they are actually, saying, that's how they are implementing, or maybe provoking that change is required, and that's how they are doing it. So, like, they are actually pushing people to have a shift in that color of their skin. So that's problematic here. So if in case a thing like that does not exist, or maybe, like, there is a ban on this kind of products, and what happens is that people will not be pushed to think in that way. As I said, it's sometimes it could be like, it could be of a maybe choice of, even as I said, like, the choice is also driven by a negative thing that is actually that they are actually facing in the society. So now, that will actually be certain level effective. Not every policy is 100% effective, but like a ban on product that is well created and adequately enforced could at least, like, reject a material from the mainstream. What is that is a mainstream thing existing. So at least it would reject a material. And so, like, not everyone might follow this ban, but many will see that this ban is there for a good reason, and they will not actually seek alternatives. So, as I said, not 100% efficient, but still there will be people who will be doing it. And yeah, so, uh, it's just physically and socially harmful. And like, the celebrities and mass media, like, this people are affecting, like, autonomous decisions of people. They're not actually making autonomous decisions because they're being heavily influenced by the way they feel about their body, the way they feel about their skin. And it's just disgusting.
Yeah, I guess I need to think about that for a second. I always thought my go-to would just be a reform, but uh, now that I'm thinking about it, like you education, if you can't really, because of the third world status these countries are, I don't think, I'm starting to question myself if education would actually be like we'd have to go deeper. We'd have to figure out why these countries are in debt
Mhm.
and what we could do to help them
Mhm.
out and get them out of poverty. And then to add to what you said, yeah, whenever you mention a ban, people are gonna. The argument always does come up where people are gonna get it anyway. It actually does get kind of annoying. They say with guns,
That
marijuana.
that exists in everything, like, but the idea,
Yeah, there's always
but the
gonna.
idea is that you
Mhm.
also do agree that there is certain level of harm that this kind of products possess on the people, so that's the idea.
Oh yeah, definitely. I, I, I like. I mean, do you think that people may start to manufacture their own products if it's banned? I mean, where does it stop? I mean,
I think, like, it's as I said, like, the idea of developing superiority exists in terms of skin, like, whitening products. And I think one, so it's just that, people just need a little knowledge, or maybe, like, I mean, I think, like, people should in fact be taught. When you say educational reform, I think people should be, like, actually going through this kind of educational campaigns that actually tell them that why is it important to love their self, love their own self, and actually appreciate their body, instead of actually telling them that, you don't have to use it, or maybe because that's not going to help, like, but if in case, um, like, if in case you go in a way, or maybe the educational reform that establishes in a way that, like, it's important for everyone to actually, be good in their own body, and then, like, so it actually helps in a level. And if in case you see, like, even the dummies in shopping malls and everywhere, like, I have never seen a black dummies, like, on any of the shopping malls. Like, there's always white, and there's always slim, like, beautiful ones, kind of thing. So, it's just the idea that there is so much promotion of this kind of ideas, that, like, it's not going to stop if there's no certain legislation behind it. And there will be a certain level, it will be still be conducting, maybe, like, hid secretively, or maybe anyway, but still a larger part of this is actually so open to the audience, so open to people. And then it should be, like, it should be given a concrete action. And then that's what I suggest. Legislation is required.
yeah, no, that might be it. To add on to that, though, the United States, there used to be a negative stigma, and there still kind of is, not to the degree,
Hmm.
against homosexuality in the West in general. And what ended up happening is it was a new social progressive movement started where they started promoting
Hmm.
gay
Hmm.
rights in the media and shows, TV shows. You see it all the
Hmm.
time. Sometimes it seems too forced, but whatever. And then we legalized gay
Hmm.
marriage, and there doesn't seem to be a as much of a negative stigma. I mean, the older generation, they're gonna, they still see it like, you know, homosexuality is a sin, etc. But you can't really change that anyway. But I think that's exactly what we should do. I mean, I guess we could ban it. I mean, if you think that will help, I'm still like on the edge about that. I think just teach people that it's wrong. I mean, I don't know.
So,
Just
okay, even in this case, like, the even in this case, as you suggested, the United States, like, they
mhm.
legalized, gay marriage. And so why, like, if you see now, I'd not say, like, it's certainly now everyone is being acceptable of gay marriage. There are people, like, who are from, who hold some, like, strong views.
Yeah,
It's still against it, but legislation which is legalizing it actually helped it a lot to actually come to people, to actually let people know that, there's a certain, there is, um they I mean, like, they should be accepted, they should be actually given the way they want to live. Or, like, this is, I mean, what I mean is that the empowerment, or maybe the idea that legislation promoted, so that it was so important, so that it was so important to be acknowledged by people, and then that has actually helped a lot here. So that's what I'm suggesting. So, educational reform did, I mean, maybe even if it contributed a bit of it, I think legalizing actually now will be helping it a lot better, and then it has already actually like helped it, like in a wider sense. So that's what I'm exactly suggesting. I'm suggesting like take a legislation on it. So if in case you're banning it, it shows that the country is against this idea. It shows that the country itself is against the idea, and then it shows that the country is actually concerned about the people or citizen not doing unimportant things about like for on their own body. So this will actually help people, like people people grow. Like if you see, like as I said, there will be certain level of people, certain number of people who will still be opposing gay marriage, but that doesn't change the fact that there is a huge positive impact it has brought on the people. So that's what I'm exactly suggesting for the products as well.
Yeah, I guess I just proved myself wrong with my own statement. I just mentioned that they passed legislation and it became more destigmatized. I just proved myself wrong. I don't even know what I'm arguing anymore. I mean, I don't have an emotional attachment to this. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm willing to change my view. Like, I'll always change my view if
I
I
mean,
need
yeah, I
to.
think that's I mean that should be something like, I think I don't really like when people are so much rigid. I mean, people will actually be rigid to their views sometimes because there is a level of understanding they have developed throughout it. But still, like, if in case when sometimes when you feel that like, this could be maybe a greater like, stance I should have taken, I think I would openly do that. And I do that always. Like I change my views time and again, like, just to keep myself on a stable note. I think it's good, like, it's progressive.
But yeah, no, like I used to be like hardcore, like alt-right wingy, and
Uh-huh.
now I'm kind of more like left after studying like history and everything. Uh, no, like really, like like all Muslims are terrorists. That's like how far right I went. But
Uh-huh.
I've changed a little. Donald Trump supporter, etc.
Okay.
I don't support Donald Trump, by the
Uh-huh.
way, more than Hillary Clinton. I don't know if you followed the U.S. election at all, but
I mean, I do sometimes, but I didn't actually this time, like,
well, no, our news networks are a joke over here. I mean, I was watching Fox News earlier just to see what was happening, and they were talking about Ivanka Trump's dress,
Uh-huh.
and like, this isn't news. This is just dumb. But no, I mean, yeah, I guess you win. I mean, I changed my view, but what about like other countries though,
Uh-huh.
like India? I still not understanding like
There's
why we're not.
there's such a big problem existing in India and Nepal. Like, I mean, even if you're ever like proposing or ever like, if in case you ask a boy, like, okay, what kind of girl do you want? A boy never will tell you that he wants a black girl. What he will say is that a white, like, beautiful, like maybe long hair, thick hair, blah blah blah. But there will be always this, the idea that they should be white will always be existing whenever, like, and I don't know, it's something that people wish for so deep rootedly. And like I is having a brown complexion, like I have faced a lot of things, like, a lot of things. And people actually, you might not believe it, people actually called me African.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
people did. So,
Yeah,
and it was
you're far from Africa. I
and
mean,
it was because I'm brown. Like, people actually told me that I belong, like I should be from Africa. So, there's this idea that it's so difficult to change, so difficult to change. Like, I have seen educated minds doing that. Like, I mean, not everyone, definitely there are some like people who actually don't do it. But so, it's just so up there. And of like a mother would not actually want a black children in a family. She wishes her, like, child to be white.
oh,
And like, I mean, even after a child is born, there are some techniques, like, I don't know if in case the mother's milk is sprayed on the like face or something to make them white, or
oh,
there are so many existing techniques, like what people suggest to do it. So, I mean, and what I actually thought was, when I was a small, I mean, I've been facing it throughout, like, throughout my journey when I was a small. So, like, it has been 19 or maybe 18. I'm 19. So I don't, the time I exactly remember. So from the time, I think it has been now 15, like, concrete years, but I see no change, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you ask someone like they're describing their girlfriend and be like, yeah, she has fair complexion. Like, what does that mean? It means lighter
Yeah.
skin. It happens all the
And it's
time.
so much, and it's like, I mean, today, like to some extent, I think 1% of like this media products and some, the cosmetic products, they're actually like, showing like, black people, or maybe like, fat people. It's an extent to actually, tell people that like, they are open to the acceptance of this kind of thing, but still, like, it's not actually like, accepted, but it's more like an idea. Because if you see, like, today people are like so much aggressive about sexism, racism, like, all these ideas,
Oh, yeah.
so because media knows how exactly to influence the audience, what they do is that they're using
Mhm.
such bodies, yeah, they are using such a skin to actually promote themselves. So that's the problem here. It's not that, hey, like, suddenly they come out and say that, hey, black models are beautiful, or maybe black models could do amazing. That's not what they believe. Why they are doing this is because they know how to influence the audience, and that's the problem here. And in India, like, like, in Nepal as well, this color thing is just so huge. I mean,
Mhm.
it's so
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Well, in the United States, we have like we have this new movement. I think social progressivism is good, but we have like a new movement of like they call them social justice
Hmm.
warriors, where they
Hmm.
take things to the extreme. What they do is instead of promoting love for like gays or these minority groups, they instead go out and attack the majority groups
Hmm.
instead. So it's starting, and I think a lot of that is why Donald Trump became
Hmm.
president. People were just the majority groups were just tired of being put down by these people. So there's a way to do it. You just have to be really careful not to go
Hmm.
like full on militant, like
Hmm.
nuclear option. Like you don't have to go crazy
Hmm.
with you can uh you should support like all people of
Yeah.
biological categories. But in the US, we have a new movement where it's like
Hmm.
instead of, like I said, promoting minority groups or being minority groups and self love, they blame the majority groups, such as white people, etc., heterosexual,
Hmm.
Christian. They attack those groups instead. So, I mean, it's, yeah, I think a reform would be good. We just have to do it
Hmm.
in a way that doesn't bring other people down.
Hmm. Like, you see, so even my friends, like, I know that my friends are well educated. Like, I mean, educated, I'd not just say in a sense of understanding, which I actually doubt, but like, in terms of like knowing things, they know that, all Muslims are not terrorists, or maybe a lot of things. But still, like, when I mean, I see them like being racists every day, when they talk about India, when they talk about Africa, when they talk about, like, brown people. I see them do that every day,
Mm-hmm.
even though knowing that that is wrong, even though being educated for this many years that this is wrong, like, even though being said by teacher that this is wrong, being said by newspapers that this is wrong, they're still doing it. And then, it's something that is actually, you know I mean, I think that's where, like, it should be not sort of a, like, small movement that happens. It should be the whole, like, country movement, the legislation that should actually stick into people's mind, because they're just, I mean, it's so difficult to believe that people would do that. People do not marry, like, people don't want to marry black girls, and then it's just so disgusting. Like, I think you should definitely study some cases from India, like, especially India, because there's much population, so much stories to that. So, I mean, it's just, it's so awful if you read about it.
In India or in Nepal or
In Nepal, I mean, like, in Nepal, I do say that it does exist in a, like, in a big sense, but not so much as in India. I would say, like, it does exist, because, like, I have seen it, and especially what I so the case is that it's more in terms of women, but it is less in terms of men. So throughout my upbringing, I've never seen like, a black boy, like, a mother, or any, like, a person actually telling a black boy that, hey, you're too black, or like, no one is going to marry you, or maybe, like, African or something, like, you know, very less. But in terms of women, it's even more. I don't know why, but in terms of women, it's like 90% more than what happens for boys.
I wonder if that's a factor in like unemployment if employers don't hire certain people because of their skin color.
Mhm.
I mean, we had stuff where certain minority groups are underrepresented in companies,
Mhm.
and so they took it to the extreme. Instead of hiring white people, they would just swap them out for a minority. I don't necessarily agree with that
Mhm.
either. I think it should just be like qualifications instead of
Yes.
just choosing someone because their biological skin. It just seems kind of weird, and so it's
Oh.
kind of it's an extreme movement we
Wow.
have. But what was I gonna say?
And like, you know, if
Uh,
so many organizations like, or these institutions are kind of like, you know, accepting the idea of like, you know, gender equal workforce, like workspace or something, like, you know, I mean, sometimes so many institutions are doing it just because, like, you know, I mean, today, if in case you stand for equality, or maybe you stand, like, you know, against sexism or racism, it's kind of a big thing. You feel like, you know, you feel proud about it yourself, even though you're not actually implying it, or maybe, like, you know, taking a significant action on it. It just gives you a proud feeling, that's saying that, hey, like, you know, I hate racists, or like, you know, I support gender
oh
equality, I support this, blah, blah, blah. It gives like people, like, you know, a sense of like, you know, confidence, or some
yeah,
sense of like superiority when they say it. So that,
yeah. It's called virtue signaling. People, uh,
what is it
it's
called? I can,
virtue signaling.
ooh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, in the U.S. election, people would post all this anti-Trump stuff just to prove that they're not a racist, and then they've never
Yes.
been involved. They've never been involved in politics or
Uh-huh.
anything. And I mean, when you have to prove that you're so not a racist, you probably have a lot of prejudice and bias, and you're probably working with your own racism yourself. It's weird. Yeah, virtue signaling.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what happened. Like, you know, and that, I mean, yeah, it's problematic. And I always thought, like, you know, that this could actually go and you know, like generations has been passing, but still there is the existence of it significantly. And again, there are a few people who always, like, you know, there are always exceptions, like, you know. So there are like some people. So in my family, like, it was just completely different. My dad, my parents, like my parents are teachers, and my dad is a principal. So we have a school, and like, you know, he is well formed, and I never faced problems like this at my home. But my relatives and all, like, you know, so it's existing, like, you know, in a wider sense. So
Yeah, no, I hear you. It looks like we have 2 minutes left. Do you have any last?
no, like,
Do you want?
uh-huh, uh-huh, you can just go ahead.
I'm always looking to debate if there's another topic you'd want to debate.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Okay, so if in case there's anything you wanna, I mean, like, you have idea of, because I don't have any certain idea on my, like, topic on my mind right now, but you could actually post it, or maybe just call, like, send me a text on Facebook or somewhere, so you could just debate again as well. And it was your first debate, so congratulations, you did good.
yeah,
Did you
thank
enjoy
you.
it?
Yeah, I mean, huh?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I did. I've always
Oh,
wanted to do
yeah.
it, but what happens is I'll like say my parents or someone or a friend or whatever, they'll say something that's just wrong, and then I'll correct them, and then instead of them like debating me, they'll like change the subject because it's so taboo to talk about
Uh-huh.
politics, foreign policy, social policy. Like, yeah, so it's kind of a breath of fresh air for me. I mean,
Mhm.
to be able to talk about
Mhm.
really important topics,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's more about it. It's very less about winning, or this is more about discussion, like, you know, on how you see different sides and different perspectives, like, you know, going through it. So I think it's so fun. I mean, yeah, welcome to Call Out.
Yeah, no,
And
thank
you
you.
have
And
to
it's not,
debate like more. I mean, this is your first one. Now go keep on debating. Like, there are some amazing, like, debaters out there.
yeah, but everyone who posts things, like, I already agree with it. So I'm like, I guess I could go on there and agree with them for 45 minutes.
Mhm.
But I mean, yeah, it's not about winning, or it's not like we're running for president.
Yeah.
We're not trying to garner votes
Uh-huh.
or appeal to people. But yeah. How do you pronounce your first name?
Zamuna. Yeah.
Zamuna.
And
All right. I'm Colby, by the way. It's
yeah,
easy.
it's easy. I mean, Asian
All
names are
right.
a bit different, like a bit difficult sometimes because they're longer and then, oh. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. This has been great. I really appreciate coming on here, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
You too. And yep, I hope we debate soon. And
No, definitely. Bye.